Well, welcome everybody. Really excited for this session. I'm Billy Davis. We're going to talk here about how to use automation to strengthen your client relationships. So, with that being said, we'll jump right into it. So, first up, kind of something about me. I've been automating in the staffing industry since 2016. Actually, started doing my own automations, playing around with some APIs, and then a couple companies kind of emerged on the scene in staffing automation. So I became a power user for multiple of the first technologies. I became the first full-time HereFish employee, and I was a HereFish client before a HereFish employee. For those of you that don't know that name, it's Bullhorn Automation, formerly HereFish. At one point, I was the director of implementation support and success, all those hats at the same time. And then obviously, as we grew and scaled, helped kind of separate out each of those teams, train, and kind of grow all those divisions to help our client base. I've done 300 plus implementations personally with clients. I've worked with over 800 companies. And there's a rumor out there that I am a half robot. So you can judge for yourself, but really love kind of providing any knowledge, best practices that I have, kind of sharing it with the community. Really love seeing all the impacts and kind of efficiency gains that staffing automation can unlock. So that's what I'm really passionate about. So jumping into what we're going to cover here today, kind of first off, just going to start a little introduction for those of you that might not be well versed in kind of what staffing automation is, and talking about our pillars of automation to give you a nice kind of key reference on how you can think about staffing automation, some of the benefits. Then we're going to go right into kind of the meat of the presentation here, which is around kind of 10 tips that you can use with automation to strengthen your client relationships. And then how to achieve those tips and kind of what they look like in action. So we will jump right in to the pillars of staffing automation. So automation is essentially a if this then that. So there's almost unlimited potential and capability there. So what we found is it helps to have these pillars of automation just to give you a reference point of kind of some of the main categories of benefits that you can unlock when you optimize and use staffing automation efficiently. So the first one here is around productivity. So it's ensuring you're doing the right things at the right time with the right people. This is you can use kind of reminders, internal notifications, utilize tasks, notes, all those types of things to arm your recruiters and salespeople with kind of actionable insight of what they need to be doing. The experience pillar is all around communication. So you can do text message, email communication, as well as deploy surveys or chatbots. And then all around communications, all around ensuring that you don't have these kind of black holes of communication, that individuals that you want to communicate with, whether that's candidates or clients, you're doing so. You can create these journeys, these cadences to kind of mix in automated communications, but then also reminders for personalized touch points from your staff. And then lastly, the last pillar is all around data health. So obviously, good, clean data is a dream of any ATS or CRM user. So it unlocks a ton of potential and utilizing a single source of truth, having all of your integrations come back in to your system, ensuring that your process is being followed consistently. And obviously, a marketer's dream is having clean data that you can segment off of. So improving your data health, enabling self-service to allow candidates and clients to update their own information, then also reducing data entry or eliminating it in some cases so you can free up your recruiters and salespeople's time so that they can build relationships, do that consultative approach. I've never met a recruiter or salesperson that really likes to do the data entry or admin work. And then the added benefit is you get accuracy, consistency, all of those elements. So those are the three pillars. Like I said, we love kind of talking about that in that context because it gives you a frame and a reference where you can look at a category, figure out what can I do in there to help my business grow, and it gives you a good idea of where you can start with automation. Now, something we've also noticed is that there's a huge demand for best practices, guides, tutorials. Clients are always really interested to find out what other clients are doing, how they're getting results, and how are they being successful with automation. So at Bullhorn, we created this connected recruiting methodology. So we recognize that you can have the best technology, but you really need to pair that technology with best practices and ensuring that your team is enabled and trained to get optimized success. So with connected recruiting, we combine kind of industry leading best practices from those of us that have been here since the start. You get kind of thought leadership and all the areas of recruiting and staffing that affect your business. Come with automation playbooks. So, kind of blueprints, things that you can utilize to launch high impact ROI automations really quickly. And then also getting client success stories. So you can learn from what others are doing, get excited, kind of share those internally and start building some momentum. And I have a couple visuals here of kind of the connected recruiting methodology and kind of what it looks like. And I mean, the great part and one thing that gets me really excited about automation is the compounding nature of it. And that's why I really like this visual because you'll see it's a flywheel. So, once you start, you're kind of building momentum, you're moving across the flywheel, and then it also feeds back into itself. So you get this nice feedback loop where you can create a really incredible experience throughout the whole process. So really there's a flywheel for each of your life cycles, whether that be working with candidates, clients, even your own internal employees. But we've got to break connected recruiting down into these phases. So again, you have something that you can kind of use as a landmark, figure out where you want to improve, and then kind of get those playbooks and put those into place. And just another way you can kind of think about this, would be an example of a kind of an end-to-end life cycle on the candidate side of things. So obviously you can see what this looks like, kind of the benefits that happen, and then the four stages of connected recruiting and how you can kind of implement those to achieve optimal results. And with that being said, the introduction part there is done. I'm going to jump right into the crux of the presentation here about how you can use automation to strengthen your client relationships with 10 tips to help get you there. So first up, we need to define kind of what strengthening your client relationships looks like and how you do that. So thinking about this, and there's three key things to do. So the first is you have to build trust. Right? If you don't have trust, if you're not building trust with clients, you're never really going to have a good relationship. It's always going to be transactional. You're never going to be able to kind of transform that into a consultative partnership. So building trust, step one for sure. And the easiest way to start there is to do what you say what you do. So kind of clearly set the expectations up front of kind of what the experience is going to be, and then hitting them consistently. If you do that, you're kind of on your way to building that trust. Number two, and this is the name of the game in staffing and recruiting, is delivering results. Right? Clients are coming to you because they want help in the hiring process. So if you don't help them with the hiring process, right, you're not going to have a great relationship. So yeah, that is an underpinning foundational piece. You have to deliver results. And then while you're delivering those results, kind of the element that you can really elevate and build a really strong relationship is to provide an incredible experience while you're doing it. Ensuring that there's communication each step of the way, answering questions proactively before they're even asked, setting clear expectations, hitting them consistently, and then just ensuring that every step of the way the client feels supported. So I think you do those three things, you're on your way to kind of building a really strong client relationship. So the first tip here is around real-time updates on submissions and the sales process. So obviously, when a client is looking to hire, communication is really vital. They want to be, it's almost impossible to over communicate during kind of the job submission sales cycle type of thing because they want to know exactly what's happening. Is the job order getting worked on? Do you have it confirmation? Are there any candidates that you're identifying? And obviously, there are many ways you can optimize the process from sending out candidates to clients, configuring, send outs, getting interviews scheduled, managing that feedback, ultimately leading to placements. So lots of moving parts throughout that whole process, but you can use automation to help provide those updates, those alerts, so that your recruiters and salespeople don't feel kind of overwhelmed and having to do that all themselves. So, what does that look like? How can you achieve this? Here's some examples of this. So, for your contract, kind of your temp to hire type roles, placement end dates approaching can be a really good communication outreach just to ensure that the end date is accurate. Are they going to keep the person longer? Are they going to roll them to their payroll when that occurs? See things around the interview, right? Reminders, follow up, getting feedback, like really great communication avenues around the interview that's happening with clients. Submission status updates. So one of my favorite automations where you can provide kind of updates to the client and the candidate, kind of where they are in the process, and then ensure that someone's not getting stuck in one of those phases. So as an example of that, if a candidate has been sent out to a client, but you haven't gotten feedback in a day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever time period that you define, you can provide kind of reminders, alerts that can trigger either communication directly to the client asking, do you want to interview this person or asking for feedback? Or if you'd rather have your salespeople or account managers manage that process, you can send an internal reminder to them to then follow up. So you can kind of key trigger and make sure that those things are happening consistently. Job activity, again, this is a great one for clients to kind of know we've received your job, it's posted, it's on our website, we're getting applicants, right? Like keeping clients updated on the process, what's happening, kind of reassures them, gives them that peace of mind, and can also really shorten the sales cycle, which every client is looking for. They're looking to get that placement as quickly as possible. And then even before a client becomes a client, before you get that job order, just ensuring that during the lead and prospecting phase, that whole journey, you're having updates, you're moving them along progressively, and that you're ensuring that they're not kind of falling into the cracks of your database and you have follow up in place. So that's how you can utilize these automations to get those kind of real time updates for your submissions and your sales process. Second tip here is around standardizing the company information that candidates receive. And I personally achieved really great results with this. Like one of the frustrations many times on the client side is when they interview a candidate or they talk to a candidate and then they have no idea about the client company, right? Or if that range of kind of possibilities varies too widely. So how you can put this into place is you can partner with a client to ensure that number one, you have the right information, right? Because your recruiters, your salespeople, your account managers, they need to know this type of information in order to make the best placements, the best matches with the company. So you have to have kind of both sides have to own it, have to participate to grab that information. And then this is a great segue to kind of elevate a client into a partnership or collaboration, because then you can kind of talk about what is the best way to convey this information to a candidate. In my experience, we did some things like we created a walkthrough video of the facility so that we could share that with the candidates ahead of the time. And if kind of secrecy or there's some issues there, you can even like put it on a unlisted YouTube page, for example, with a bunch of things you can do to make sure that it can't be accessed kind of more widely. But that's an example of something you can do, ensuring that you have the information about the background of the company, what they do, kind of their value proposition, what does their ideal customer look like. All of those types of things really helpful for candidates as they're coming in. And then you can take this to the next level where you can use automation or other things to ensure that the recipient watched or reviewed the information, right? So you can kind of put those checks and balances in place to ensure that not only you have great information that you're sharing with the candidate, but that they're also reviewing it, watching it, and more importantly, kind of consuming it, learning it, absorbing. The third tip is around standardizing your process and your outreach. So this is a really important tip. And I think one of the really cool things about automation is you can use it to kind of spread your company's best practices or your SOPs, standard operating procedures throughout your whole business. So identify kind of what's your ideal sales cadence. What's your ideal what do your top performers do consistently that achieves top performing results? And then once you have that information, you can incorporate that into your automations, into your campaigns, into your cadences to ensure that a wider percentage of the business is following that that example. So, how to achieve this, what this looks like. So, the best results are going to come from a blend of mixing automated communications with reminders for more personalized touch points, whether that's phone calls, social media messages, outreaches, those types of things. Like, you're going to find the optimal results, how you can build relationships stronger by mixing those two things together. You want to optimize your communication touch points. So again, kind of find out what your ideal cadence is, what your top performers do, and then put that into your automation so that every single prospect client is going through that cadence. You can almost clone your top performers by passing that along throughout your whole business. Also, is a fantastic way to train new salespeople, new account managers, because in those reminders or in those cadence reminders, you can include script outlines, for example. So you can tee up that conversation of what it's supposed to look like, how they're supposed to capture the information, what they're supposed to do with it afterwards. And it's a way that you can spread kind of your process, your systems throughout the whole business to ensure that it's done properly. And then added bonus here is that if you're kind of ensuring that things are done a certain way, you can build in reminders and alerts and triggers when things aren't done that way to then have manager someone follow up on things to kind of fix it, ensure that next time it is going to happen. But the end result of this is if you optimize it, put it together in a great way, you're going to standardize a really fantastic journey and process that you'll be able to clearly commit in your expectation setting up front of what you're going to do. And then you have automation there to remind you, ensure that it's getting done. So again, that first layer of how you build trust, this is a great way to do it because you can set out ahead of time, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And then automation ensures that X, Y, and Z are done consistently and executed by your team. The next tip is around proactively marketing superstar candidates. So had a again personally really successfully experienced doing this. Every client wants to meet amazing top talent, right? And oftentimes, even if they don't have an opening, they're flattered that you think of them. And it's a great way where you can also kind of re-establish your partnership, but then also re-establish that you understand what they're looking for. Because if you provide them a great candidate, that's exactly what they're looking for, exactly what they told you, right? It's just a way you can build that trust and also build that kind of partnership collaboration together. So, what this looks like. So, first off, first step one here is you need to figure out what skill sets or backgrounds are always desired from your clients. So, during your prospecting, during your client intake, that I can't encourage you enough to have a series of questions there where you're honing in and figuring out what does an ideal candidate look like, where do they struggle hiring, where if who do they want to meet if they're a superstar, if they're fantastic. You want to store that information so in your database. And the main reason you want to store that information is you want it accessible by everyone. So typically you have an account manager, you might have a recruiter, somebody at the desk who's going to know that client, have a really great relationship there. But you want to ensure that information is spread as widely as possible throughout your organization so that if another recruiter meets a great candidate, right, they have something to access and can find it. And this is where automation can come and be helpful, where you can create an alert whenever a new candidate is screened that matches the criteria, right, that you got in step one, or when a candidate updates their information and it matches kind of the criteria that you got in step number one. So creating those alerts is a fantastic way. And then there's also additional things that you can do to then automate even around some of the sending out of those great candidates to clients and the feedback, things of that nature. And there's also several great marketplace partners that kind of take that to the next level. But just to give you an idea of how effective this can be, when I did this personally for the staffing firm I worked at prior to my automation days, we had approximately a 75% success rate of great candidates we sent out proactively to clients to getting interviewed. And like I said, multiple times, in most cases, the client didn't even have an opening, but they still wanted to interview and meet the candidate. And it led oftentimes to some great placements. Number five is all around maximizing the NPS to improve satisfaction. So you're not really going to know where you stand with a client unless you ask and kind of gauge and get feedback on where you're at. But then also utilizing that feedback to improve is vital so that you can continuously improve, create a great experience, but then also identify, are there any gaps or are there anything kind of missing going on throughout any of the life cycles? So, what this looks like. So, a key best practice is you want to ask more than once. And with automation, you can do this dynamically. So, one of my favorite automations is have an NPS survey you can send via text, email, however you want to deliver that. And then if the individual doesn't take the survey, you can follow up a day later, 2 days later, again, whatever cadence you choose, and ask again. And you can build in multiple kind of touch points, multiple asks in that process. I've seen in some cases up to a 50% higher completion rate just by asking multiple times. And obviously, in your kind of second message or your third message, you can slightly change up how you're asking. You can convey kind of more information about how you're going to use the information. So you can attack it from a few different angles, which will increase your overall completion percentage. And then the beauty and the dynamic element of it is if someone takes that survey that you're sending them to, you can remove them from the automation automatically so that they don't receive a follow up attempt after they've already taken it. So, for example, we send a survey out with step one. Then 2 days later, we send step two, send the survey out again because they haven't taken it. But then say they take the survey either from the first email or the second email. As soon as they take that survey, we can take them out of that automation. So then they don't receive that third follow up kind of ask to get that done. So again, it's just a great way to provide a good experience because obviously it's not a good look if you're asking them to complete the survey that they already have. And then when you get that feedback, right, kind of path or branch it depending on what the feedback is. So with the net promoter score, you can have your promoters, your neutral, and then your detractors. Right. So people that are really happy ask for reviews, testimonials. Right. That's a great way to capitalize on that great feedback. Or you can even ask what made your experience so great. So you can start to get some data around what's going really well. Also could be a great way to kind of shout out a team member, right, or account manager that's doing a great job if that's information you receive. The people in the middle, kind of the neutral kind of branch, is a great opportunity to ask what could we do to make things better, right? So they had an average experience, they had a good experience, but what could we do to make that a great experience? So if you find that information, obviously it's gold, but then you have to put it into place. But it's a great way to discover things, ways to improve, and how you can kind of utilize that feedback. And then lastly, the detractors or kind of negative feedback. You want to firefight that issue. Oftentimes, you want that to be like an internal alert to go to somebody to see if you can get on the phone, if you can visit in person. Right? Is there a way that you can make that situation better, even if it's only incrementally better, or just addressing it even there? By doing that, right, you reduce the chance that that person is then going to blast you on social media, leave you a bad review, like lose their business. Right? There's so many good things that come from addressing an issue as soon as you get that feedback. And then lastly, here, the last key is you want this for every key stage of the whole sales process. So from end to end, from prospect lead all the way to placement, you want to ensure that you're trying to gather this feedback. But then also you want to make sure you're gathering feedback for as many people as possible, even the clients that don't qualify, don't kind of go through the stage. There's still an opportunity to figure out how you can provide a good experience, things you can learn. So really encourage you to ask every step of the process and everyone that's in the process, ensure that they have a voice, they can be heard, and they can help you out. Number six is around capturing client website leads with a chatbot. So this is a kind of newer feature for automation where you can use a chatbot can live on your website, and you can actually capture unknown visitors that are coming to your website, and then kind of pass that information along to whomever on your team is it's going to be appropriate for. So to kind of put this into place, you'd create an unknown visitors chat that's going to pop up on your website if someone comes to it. It's, it'll appear in the bottom right hand corner with a little kind of bubble, and then if they click the bubble, it'll expand and grow. So it's a great way to get another omni-channel communication method in your automation toolkit, but also allow your candidates and clients to self-serve and kind of get information themselves. So really, I think where this gets supercharged and becomes really powerful is when you utilize the jump to chat functionality. So what that allows you to do is any response that a candidate or client is doing inside of the chat, you can then jump them to a different chat depending upon what they select. So just to give you a couple examples of where that can be really helpful. So number one, just right off the bat, you can ask what brings somebody to the website. What are they looking for? Are they a candidate? Are they a client? Are they looking for help in another way? Right. And then you can pad and branch them to a different chat depending upon what they take. The other really interesting way you can use this is if you serve multiple niches, if you serve multiple geographies, you can capture that information, but then by jumping them to a separate chat, depending upon what they select, you can then route the responses to the right person. So if you have account manager A who oversees hearing in the Midwest, if a client or candidate answers questions in a way that indicate that's what they're interested in, you can route the responses to that person. So then you're not the marketing person or whoever does your admin isn't left kind of distributing or trying making that decision. You can let automation create your own branching, your own tree, so to speak, to get responses to the correct area of the business as quickly as possible. And then what this looks like in action. So you can see here, this is just a demo website that we have, but in the bottom right hand corner, you get this chat that will appear on whatever website page somebody's on. When you click into it, you have your chatbot that pops up, which you can totally customize and configure. This gives you an example of what that first question could be, what brings you to the site. And then if they're looking to be hired, they're looking to hire, whatever they select, then you can have them go to a separate chat, separate area. Also fantastic, by the way, for like an FAQ or like a help me type process where, regardless of why they're coming to your website, they're they're going to be there and you're going to be able to help them out. Number 7 is around creating a perpetual system to generate warm leads, which like every salesperson I've ever talked to that's put this in place gets really excited. Obviously, leads are fantastic if you just get leads in and of themselves, but then if they're qualified, if they're warm leads, that's even better. So obviously if you get a perpetual system of that too, you take it to another level. So how you can get this done. So one of my highly recommended automations is to target clients that you've done business with in the past that you aren't currently doing business with today. And you can set whatever date parameters that you want on there to ensure that it makes sense for your business. So like for example, find clients you've done business with in the last 18 months. And you can also define what doing business with means. Does that mean you've made a placement? Does that mean you've made a submission? Does that mean you've gotten a job order? You can create whatever customizations you want there. And then you can also say that you haven't done business with in the past X amount of time, right? So again, you can set and customize what that looks like for your business. Is that 3 months? Is that 6 months? Is that 12 months? Whatever you want to do there. And then you can ensure things that also just to make sure that it's you're communicating with client contacts from companies that are still active. So ensure that the company status is still in a good standing, right? They're not in a DNU situation or something along those lines. So really great way to kind of build this perpetual engine. Obviously, if it's client contacts you've done business with in the past, they know you, right? They've already been qualified. You've worked with them in some capacity. So best possible leads are people that have already kind of used your service or already kind of passed that threshold and wanted to do business with you. And then you can utilize this same concept also for cross-selling opportunities. And I've seen that be really successful, especially for businesses that open a new business line or open into a new geography, or even just with established clients that might not be aware of all the things that you can do and help them with. Really fantastic way to engage your client contacts, but then also provide that value to ensure that they know all the ways that you can help them as a staffing and recruiting. Number eight is again a favorite kind of outcome and transformation that I've seen, and it's transforming kind of prospecting from outbound to inbound. So I've seen this done for multiple clients, and it really revolutionizes their efficiency, but also the excitement of their sales team and the results ultimately. So it gets really fun. So, how to achieve what this looks like. So, the first thing that you need to do is kind of identify your prospects, your leads, kind of capture that list, that segment. And then what you want to do is put them into kind of a campaign where you're distributing top of the funnel value content, right? So things like what you're seeing from market trends, pay rate and tips, trends in the industry, those types of things where you're adding value to anybody that's interacting or receiving that. And also, you can even mix in information on why it's good working with a staffing firm, what separates you from your competitors, all those types of things where you're educating and providing value to that segment. Then you can follow up with those prospects or leads that engage or interact with that email. So oftentimes you'll have a call to action, visit our web page for more, download our salary guide, download our market tips and trends, right? So anybody that's interacting with that call to action, anybody that's engaging with the email, you're able to then use from an automation trigger standpoint to follow up with them. So what that can look like is if they click a link, if they view your website, if they even open the email, right, you can decide what level of engagement you want to determine for this follow up. You could then move them to a separate automation, right, where you can either, again, your preference here, you could send a reminder internally to have a BD rep reach out, see if you can spark a conversation, or you can even automate that, reach out with a quick email inviting them to book time on the calendar with a BD rep or salesperson. So, and then with that, you can utilize self-scheduling functionality, so you don't have to go back and forth to find out availability, right? Just click a link, connects the calendars together, pick a time that works, and then all of a sudden your sales staff is going to get really excited because they're going to have qualified prospects, right, booking time on their calendar beforehand. That qualified prospect kind of aspect to that is really important because your sales staff will get really excited when they're qualified contacts and prospects booking time. But if they're not qualified, right, or it's a mixed bag, you'll diminish some of the enthusiasm. So you can even incorporate some qualifying questions, or just ensure that at the top of the funnel where you're gathering the prospects and leads, ensure that they're qualified up front. So those would be my recommendations there. But I've seen the results of this be incredible for a business. I mean, one example that comes to mind is we had a client that all of their BD reps would have kind of a cold call goal and expectation every day. It was something like 30 or 40 cold calls they had to make every day. And then obviously the conversion ratios typically were quite small, but the idea would be that they want to kind of convert those calls into meetings, into job orders, obviously submissions and placements. Kind of after putting this in place, their reps would come in Monday morning and they'd have 10, 15, 20 qualified prospects already booked on their calendar for that whole week. So it increased efficiency incredibly, made their sales team really excited because many of them didn't really like doing cold calls. But the results of it were incredible. They kind of created this great end-to-end funnel that resulted in qualified prospects booking time directly on their calendars. So obviously, a great transformational outcome. Number nine is around nurturing clients that are engaging with your content and your website. So the previous one was kind of a dedicated campaign, right, where you're kind of gathering and using that information from just the top of the funnel campaign. But you could also do this with any other kind of communications and things that are happening. And so one of my favorite examples of this would be find any clients that are going to a kind of a key place on your website, and then giving an alert to their account manager, whoever manages that record, just to let him know, hey, this person is kind of indicating, right, there's an advanced level of interest. So what does that look like? So you can create alerts and triggers for when someone visit a key pages on your website. What we used to use is we had an about us, and then also like a client services page on our website. So anytime a client went to one of those, we wanted to give kind of an alert, especially if it was a client that we weren't doing business with currently. We wanted to give an alert to an account manager because that indicated most often they were interested. If you have a pricing page, like that's another great indicator if someone's looking at that. You can use the same concept for any kind of call to actions in any of your key campaigns, right? So those any nurturing, any kind of value add content that you're doing, right? If someone's interacting with that, it's a great way to know. And even if you don't want to do something actionable, it's still great information to know, right? So your salespeople, your account reps, it's good to know that your prospects, your clients, right, are active, kind of what they're interacting and engaging with. And also great information for your marketing team, right? Figuring out what content is working, what content isn't working, right? To then kind of refine and get better. And then lastly, you can also use this as a trigger to move the clients and prospects to their own customized journeys, which you can further segment. And then more segmentation you can do, better prescriptive you can be. And typically the better results happen from that engagement. And then lastly here, last tip, number 10, is around creating market analysis with candidate data. So it's a great way to strengthen client relationships. Again, kind of move things to a consultative partnership approach. And kind of how to make this happen is you can kind of capture robust candidate data during your screening process. Things like salary expectations, remote in office preferences, if you do contract or shift type work, what type of shifts are desired, things of that nature. You can utilize business intelligence to kind of analyze that data, put it together visually, right? And then you can present those trends back to clients. And it's something a great way to get your foot in the door with a prospect or a lead, right? Coming armed with marketplace analysis, but then also a great way to kind of prove your consultative approach, prove your partnership, coming to them with actionable information. And oftentimes you can use that information to get better outcomes, to impact change. So really, I encourage you all to think about how you can leverage your scale, the information you gather to help your clients. Okay, to kind of wrap things up here, here are the 10 kind of tips that we covered. So real-time updates for submissions in their sales process, standardize that company information that the candidates receive, standardize your sales process and the outreach, proactively market superstar candidates, maximize NPS to improve satisfaction, get that feedback, capture client website leads with chatbot, and then route them to the appropriate part of your business, generate perpetual warm leads, transform your prospecting from outbound to inbound, nurture clients engaging with your content and website, and then lastly, create market analysis with your candidate data. So with that being said, we have a few minutes left here to jump into some Q&A. I got some notifications. So let me pop over and we'll see what we have here for some questions. Cool. So I got a question around the chatbot and kind of where you can start or kind of where you can kind of think about that. I put together a guide on the chatbot and it's a really robust feature. So I would encourage you first to talk to your Bullhorn account manager if you're interested. And then we have multiple things that you can kind of get into more detailed use cases, kind of the common ones that we had in mind. I'm even actually putting together a guide on how you can use that jump to chat functionality to unlock some really advanced and powerful use cases. So that's great. Okay, let's see. I know I saw another as well. Oh, cool. Yeah. So it looks like a couple of people asking around some more information, some of the details here on kind of some of these transformations. Yeah, happy to provide it. I have a newsletter, which I'll link at the end, which kind of I walk through kind of in depth more guides and tutorials where you can see a bunch of this information. So if you're interested in finding out more, I'll jump to the next slide. And here's where I'd encourage you to check out. So, first off, the connected recruiting site is awesome information. You can see those success stories, those blueprints, those kind of automation playbooks. So that's at bullhorn.com/connected recruiting. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Do every weekday a staffing automation best practice tutorial at 11 a.m. Eastern. If you have any questions, be happy to answer. Shoot me a DM. So linkedin.com, you search my name, Billy Davis, or Build with Billy Davis. You'll find it there. And then I also have a staffing automation newsletter. You can join 300 plus automators, getting kind of the best tips, guides, tutorials in a weekly automation newsletter. That's buildwithbilly at substack.com. So thanks so much, everyone, for attending. You can also shoot me an email if you have any questions. It's billy.davis@bullhorn.com. But really excited to kick things off here for the World Staffing Summit. So thanks so much for attending. Enjoy the rest of the day. There's some amazing sessions coming up. So really excited for everybody, and enjoy the day, and I'll see you later. Bye.